Bro, you want a wife or not? Gorgeous, legs for days, loaded. Can be sweet, can be a boss, whatever you want. And I'm not talking about some gold digger, man. Just think about it. Bro. Hey, bro. I pounded on the bathroom door of our dorm room, shouting the same lines I'd been repeating since yesterday. I couldn't help but be persistent. My commission was, after all, a cool $1,000,000. The thought of reaching the peak of my life thanks to my best friend made me snort with laughter. And all he had to do was offer up his pretty face. I could already see it. A life of leisure waving at me from a sun-drenched beach. The sand, the surf, the bikinis. I'm coming for you. My pounding got harder. The rickety wooden door groaned with each hit, a sad creak that promised it wouldn't last much longer. Finally, after one last heroic effort, crack, thud, the door fell flat on the floor. For a split second, Mason and I just stared at each other, twin expressions of bewilderment on our faces. I was momentarily stunned that the door was actually that flimsy. Then instinct kicked in. I bolted. You never stick around when things break in a college dorm. Now, hearing the roar from the bathroom, I felt a twinge of embarrassment and rubbed my nose. Who knew the door was that fragile? Just as he lunged at me, his fist aimed squarely for my face, I dropped to my knees. I surrender. It's my fault. Don't hit the money maker. It was a code between us. No good friend could stay mad after that. Mason was no exception. His charge halted. A grin fought its way onto his face, and I breathed a silent sigh of relief. My good looks were my livelihood. A black eye would be a serious financial setback. Ahem. All right, you can get up, you idiot. Thanks, boss. I scrambled to my feet, not missing a beat. My mission was still front and center. So, Godfather, you want a wife or not? This whole mess started yesterday. I was waiting by the main gate of campus to pick up my dear godson, Mason Cole, when I saw her. A woman I'd only ever seen on Forbes lists and Bloomberg TV, standing right there in the flesh. Victoria Cole, heiress to one of New York's biggest old money fortunes and the public face of the Cole Corporation. If you were looking for the richest, youngest, most powerful woman in the country, you'd land on her. The media only ever talked about her, but it was an open secret that there was a younger Cole sibling, a son, who was kept completely out of the spotlight. No one knew what he looked like, and right now, her eyes were practically glued to the back of my godson. Her long hair partially hid her striking features, so no one else seemed to notice. But I recognized her instantly. A lightning storm of possibilities exploded in my brain. Maybe it was all the cheesy rom-coms I'd watched, but I'd already picked out names for their future children. On the way back to the dorm, after a series of carefully worded questions, I confirmed my suspicion. Mason was single. Looking at his face, admittedly almost as handsome as mine, I believed him. A guy who still had to use my meal card to buy a Chipotle bowl was definitely not dating anyone. I was also certain that the great Victoria Cole had a one-sided crush on my best friend. More importantly, I knew this was my one and only shot to get rich. Leaving Mason standing there confused with his luggage, I sprinted back toward the campus gate. The trees along the path blurred into a green streak. I was pretty sure I was running faster than I ever did in high school to get to the front of the lunch line. My glorious, wealthy future was beckoning. It was like a shot of pure adrenaline. My mind was crystal clear, my eyes burning with a desire for cold, hard cash. Every second I wasted felt like a personal insult to my future bank account. But when I got back to the gate, my heart sank. The billionaire was gone. Not a trace. The image of all that money waving goodbye sent a sharp pain through my chest. I scanned the street frantically, and then, thank God, I saw it. Parked a little ways down the block was a custom black Mercedes that stuck out like a sore thumb among the student clunkers. A crowd of people was gathered around it, snapping pictures. One girl was even sitting on the hood, posing. Tacky. So tacky, I muttered, shaking my head. What's the point of taking a picture? The real power move is to win over the owner. These people had no strategy. I sighed at their foolishness. If the car was here, she couldn't be far. My eyes landed on a cafe across the street. What does a high-powered CEO drink? An extra shot iced Americano, obviously. The only thing bitter enough to match her hustle. With my target locked, I vaulted over the pedestrian railing to cross the street. My confidence got the better of me. A screech of tires ripped through the air as a silver SUV slammed on its brakes, stopping inches from my leg. I snapped back to reality and saw the driver through the windshield, his face purple with rage, unbuckling his seatbelt. He was about to get out and rearrange my face. I had to act fast. I darted his door and pressed my whole body against it, holding it shut. When he couldn't open it, he rolled down the window. Before he could unleash a torrent of New York's finest profanities, I pressed my palms together and bowed my head. Sir, I yelled. Total idiot here. My fault. Let me just get across. I could literally see the anger drain from his face, replaced by pure confusion. It was my chance. I took off, glancing back just in time to see him shake his head, mutter a few curses, and drive away. He didn't follow. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding and wiped away non-existent sweat from my forehead with a smug grin. Haha, I'm a genius. Anyone else would have gotten their ass kicked. Dignity? What's dignity if you can't cash it in? This was me cashing in, pleased with myself. I paused to fix my hair in the reflection of a tinted window on the street. It was, after all, a meeting that would determine the course of the rest of my life. I had to look sharp. Little did I know it was a one-way mirror. The very person I was looking for was sitting on the other side, watching the whole ridiculous episode, tried her best not to laugh out loud. I took a deep breath in front of the cafe, calmed my racing heart, and walked inside. The place was surprisingly empty, which meant I saw her immediately. She was sitting at a window table, sipping her coffee alone. Even with the oversized sunglasses, there was no mistaking her. In that moment, I finally understood that old saying. The one who captures your heart at first sight is the one you can always find in a crowd. Suppressing a wave of giddy excitement, I walked over and sat down directly across from her. She frowned, clearly annoyed by the intrusion. Victoria Cole was, in fact, both confused and irritated. While the little spectacle outside had amused her, she didn't appreciate strangers invading her personal space. She was about to wave over her bodyguards to have me removed. But then she saw me pull out my phone and slide it across the table, a picture of Mason displayed on the screen. The motion to her security team stopped. Her expression shifted from annoyance to intrigue. Seeing the change, I relaxed. Looks like I guessed right. I casually glanced behind her. A couple of huge guys in suits were pretending to drink lattes, but their attention was locked on our table. I cleared my throat and plastered on my most charming, sycophantic smile. Ma'am, I'm Mason's best friend. I saw you at the gate earlier, and I was starstruck. Even with your hair covering your face, I knew in that one glance that you were the most beautiful woman in the world. I was about to launch into a whole speech when her voice, smooth as silk, cut me off. Get to the point, kid. What do you want? She took a delicate sip of her coffee. I could hear the amusement in her tone. See? I thought smugly. No woman can resist a good compliment. I didn't let my triumph show. I leaned forward conspiratorially, gesturing for her to lean in too. As she did, her eyes filled with curiosity, I finally delivered my pitch. Ma'am, I can help you win the man of your dreams. The moment the words left my mouth, she choked, spraying a mouthful of iced coffee directly into my face. Caught completely off guard, I recoiled, fumbling for napkins to wipe myself down while staring at her in confusion. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, kid, she said, though she looked more flustered than apologetic. She awkwardly took another sip of her coffee and looked up at me. The man of my dreams? She asked, her eyes searching mine. Suddenly, I was confused too. Had I gotten it all wrong? Yeah, I stammered. Mason Cole. PFFFD. Another spray of coffee hit my face. This time, I was annoyed, but the vision of sand, sun, and bikinis forced a pained smile onto my lips. She made no attempt to apologize this time. Instead, she was clutching her stomach, laughing. This only made me more confused. I looked behind me. Was there something funny on the wall? Seeing her laugh so hard, I didn't know what else to do, so I just started laughing along with her. For the rest of my life, I will endure. I will endure this. I chanted to myself. Victoria was having the time of her life, watching the goofy kid across from her chuckle nervously. She originally thought he'd somehow figured out she was Mason's sister and was coming over to say hi. But to think he'd mistaken her interest for a crush on her own brother. It was hilarious. And as funny as it was, she found herself genuinely interested in this silly, audacious kid. An entirely new idea began to form in her mind. She was only dropping her brother off at school because her parents were hounding her about getting married. Her original plan was to just go along with whatever blind dates they set up, but now, the young man sitting in front of her seemed like a much better option. After a moment, her laughter subsided. She propped her chin on her hands, leaning on the table, and gave me a playful look. "Kid, do you know who I am?" At this, I nodded eagerly. "You're Victoria Cole, the head of the Cole Corporation. You're on Bloomberg all the time." As I spoke, my voice grew more and more excited. Watching me rattle off her accomplishments, she started to think I was some kind of admirer, and her gaze softened. Little did she know, I just crammed all of this from a quick Google search on my way over. This only solidified the plan in her mind. She could tell I genuinely had no idea about her relationship with Mason. A wicked little spark of mischief lit up in her eyes. She cut me off. "All right, so if you know all that about me, then you know I could get any man I want on my own. What help could you possibly be?" Seeing that curious, playful look, I knew I was halfway there. I leaned in again, my voice full of confidence. "I can help you get him into bed." "You're going to drug him?" she asked, her tone casual. The question hit me like a slap. Whoa, no, of course not. I waved my hands frantically. "That's illegal." I don't know if it was my imagination, but the icy look in her eyes seemed to thaw just a little. A faint, almost imperceptible smile played on her lips, sending a shiver down my spine. This woman did not seem like a good person. The words "drug him" had rolled off her tongue so easily. Was that how she handled her business rivals? A chilling thought crossed my mind. What if she had me taken care of after this was all over? As I was lost in my dark thoughts, her cool voice, laced with the scent of coffee, drifted over. "So tell me, how do you plan to get him into bed?" She had to repeat the question before I snapped out of it. With renewed purpose, I laid out my entire, brilliant plan for her. In the end, we made a verbal agreement. I would deliver Mason to her, and she would pay me $1 million. As I left, Victoria watched my retreating back, a strange glint in her eyes. She mumbled to herself under her breath. Drugging him doesn't sound so bad, actually. Walking away, I felt a sudden chill, a shiver that had nothing to do with the weather. My first thought was that some hater was plotting against me. I looked around but saw nothing. Then, the thought of my imminent wealth washed over me, a rush of excitement that swept away any lingering doubts. I was completely oblivious to the pair of predatory eyes fixed on my back. "So, Godfather, you want a wife or not?" For some reason, the playful smile on Mason's face vanished, replaced by a complex, troubled expression. His whole demeanor fell. Mason's mind was a mess. He couldn't figure out why his own sister had suddenly taken an interest in his roommate. He racked his brain. He was sure he'd never introduced Leo to Victoria. The thought of one day having to call this insurance salesman wannabe brother-in-law made him cringe. He'd already taken her money, sure, but something about it just felt wrong. But then he remembered his monthly allowance was still firmly in his sister's control, not to mention the nice little bonus she'd promised him. He had to go along with the plan. He thought about the miserable future that awaited his best friend and guiltily raised a hand, about to say something to warn him. But a flash of his sister's ice-cold glare appeared in his mind's eye, and his hand dropped limply to his side. Seeing him hesitate, I was getting antsy. Every day of delay was costing me interest. I watched him sigh, a look of utter despair on his face, as he walked over and sat on his bed. I thought he'd finally seen the light and rushed over. "Bro, you figured it out, haven't you? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As your best friend, would I ever screw you over?" I could picture myself, sounding like his personal pimp. But ever since I'd gotten back yesterday, he'd just been giving me this weird look, a mix of anger, amusement, and mostly resignation. My pep talk wasn't changing a thing. He held up a hand, stopping my spiel. "Now, I need to be alone." I pushed his hand away and took a step back. "This is no time to be alone. You should be thinking about Victoria. She even has the same last name as you. You won't have to fight over whose name the kids take. It's perfect. She's young. She's the richest woman in the country. You can skip like 30 years of struggling. Mason, think about it. If you're with her, you won't have to use my meal card for Chipotle anymore. You could be buying my Chipotle." My heartfelt plea didn't move him at all. The complicated look in his eyes just got deeper. "What about you?" he interrupted. "Why don't you consider going for it yourself?" I scoffed. "Are you kidding? Once I sell you off, I'm going to date at least 2 models. Seeing his confused expression, I realized my Freudian slip and quickly corrected myself. I mean, help you out. I'll help you out. And when I'm rich, bro, I'll totally set you up with someone. Now he was the one giving me a funny look, a smirk playing on his lips. You can save it. If you manage to find someone for yourself, I'll be impressed. Just as I was about to argue, Mason held up a hand for silence. I'm going to sleep. We'll talk tomorrow. He flopped down on his bed and closed his eyes. Tomorrow? The word sent a jolt of panic through me. A chance to get rich overnight could disappear in a flash. What if the billionaire changed her mind? But no matter what I said after that, he didn't respond. He even started snoring. I knew he was faking it. The guy never snores. But there was nothing I could do. I couldn't exactly drag him out of bed. I kept talking for another half hour, but he remained completely still. Finally, exhausted, I gave up. Fine, tomorrow it is. I just hoped it wouldn't be too late. But when I woke up the next morning, ready to resume my grand persuasion campaign, I turned to his bed and found it empty. The sheets were neatly made, but Mason was gone. At first, I figured he'd just gone to grab breakfast. But when noon rolled around and there was still no sign of him, I started to feel a sense of dread. I tried calling his phone. It rang and rang, but no one picked up. That's when it hit me. The bastard had run away. I could see my beautiful, carefree life slipping through my fingers. The pain was immense. My money. My sweet, sweet money. The scene from that movie, the one where the guy cries in the snow, flashed through my mind. I finally understood his pain. No, I wailed. Hello, darkness, my old friend. On the banks of the East River, a row of low-slung, modern townhouses stood in stark contrast to the towering skyscrapers of Manhattan behind them. Any one of these homes was a luxury the office workers in those towers could only dream of. The Cole family mansion was the crown jewel of the neighborhood, its sleek, minimalist design far surpassing the opulence of its neighbors. A massive, abstract sculpture carved from a single block of white marble sat brazenly on the front lawn, a silent testament to the family's extraordinary wealth. In the study, Mason watched his phone screen light up with Leo's name, then go dark. He held it up for the person across from him to see. Sis, are we really just going to ghost him for a few days? Victoria swirled the whiskey in her glass, her eyes holding the glint of a predator that spotted its prey. She took a sip. Patience. Just follow my plan. Mason looked at his sister's smug expression and felt a pang of regret. If her plan actually worked, he couldn't imagine how much his best friend was going to suffer. Ow, what are you doing? Before Mason could react, a sharp, stinging pain erupted on his forehead. Victoria had somehow crossed the room and flicked him hard. She seemed to have read his mind. If you dare tell him, she threatened, you're dead. Without waiting for a response, she turned and walked out of the study, leaving Mason alone, clutching his head in agony. As her footsteps faded, Mason finally came to his senses. The memory of Victoria's chilling glare extinguished the last spark of loyalty in his heart. Better him than me. Don't worry, bro, Mason muttered to himself. When you die, I'll visit your grave every year. Then he remembered the phone call from 2 days ago, when he'd sold out his best friend to his sister for a measly 10 grand. He felt a surge of regret and smacked himself in the face a couple of times. I'm such a piece of crap. Only 10 grand? I should have asked for way more. The more he thought about it, the more he felt like he'd been ripped off. No, I have to get more from her. At least another 10. Realizing Victoria couldn't have gone far, he scrambled to his feet and chased after her. 2 whole days passed. I had officially given up hope. To avoid me, Mason was even skipping classes. His phone went straight to voicemail, and my texts were a sea of green with no blue in sight. I lost count of how many times I'd called and texted him. Staring at the one-sided conversation on my phone, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I felt as helpless as someone who'd been ruthlessly ghosted. Just then my phone rang. My heart leaped, but a glance at the screen sent my hopes crashing back down. It was an unknown number. I answered listlessly. Hello. Leo, what happened to your efficiency? The cool, clear voice on the other end snapped me to attention. Ms. Cole, I'm close, I'm so close. Just a couple more days, I promise I'll get it done. I babbled, trying to sound confident. You have 2 more days. After that, our deal is off. No problem, I'll. Before I could finish, she hung up. I didn't realize until a drop of sweat hit the floor that I was drenched. I stared at the dark spot and let out a bitter laugh. He's already gone. How am I supposed to find him for you? In that moment, the frantic energy that had been driving me for days suddenly vanished. A strange sense of calm washed over me. I started to question if any of this was worth it. Was selling out my best friend for a pile of cash really the right thing to do? As the realization dawned on me, a wave of cold fear washed over me. My hands started to tremble. I sank onto the edge of my bed, gasping for air. Just then, the dorm room door opened. It was Mason, who had been missing for 2 days. He looked ecstatic, like he'd just won the lottery. That day, he'd risked life and limb to negotiate his price up by another 10 grand, for a grand total of $20,000. He'd never had that much money in his entire life. But when he saw me sitting on the bed, pale and shaking, his smile vanished. He rushed over. "Leo, what's wrong? You look awful." Seeing the genuine concern on his face, I felt a wave of guilt so powerful it almost knocked me over. I was a real piece of shit. I had a friend this good, and I was planning to sell him to a billionaire. In that instant, I made my decision between the $1 million and my best friend. I shook my head, waving a dismissive hand. "It's nothing. Just haven't been sleeping well. Sit down. I have to tell you something." With his eyes wide with confusion, I told him everything. The whole plan to set him up with a rich woman for a $1 million commission. To my surprise, his focus wasn't on the fact that I'd try to sell him out. "Wait, what? $1 million? For me?" Mason was stunned by the number. He knew I was getting paid, but he had no idea it was that much. That son of a bitch. He dared to ask for $1 million, and I was begging for scraps. It all made sense now. The look of disdain on his sister's face when he'd named his price. His measly 20 grand wasn't even a rounding error on Leo's commission. In that moment, the last shred of guilt he felt completely evaporated. He put on a show of being magnanimous. "Dude, it's fine. No big deal. It's not like I actually went through with it, right?" Seeing how easily he forgave me, my own guilt reached an all-time high. I gritted my teeth. "To show you how sorry I am, forget about all the money you owe me. And tonight, we're going to karaoke bar. My treat. It's my apology." Mason's eyes lit up. This was a double win. And then he thought about the karaoke bar. This was the perfect opportunity. He pretended to take a call, stepping out into the hallway to dial Victoria's number. In a quiet corner of the dorm, Mason looked around to make sure no one was listening, then whispered into his phone, "Sis, Leo told me everything. He's probably going to call you to cancel the deal. But he's taking me to a karaoke bar tonight. I think this is our chance." Victoria, sitting in her corner office, listened with mild interest. She was a little surprised that Leo was backing out, but when she heard the rest, she realized her brother was now firmly on her side. "Oh," she said, her voice dripping with amusement. "What kind of chance? We can drug him. Get it over within one night. You know, seal the deal. Based on what I know about him, he's the type who would feel obligated to take responsibility. It'd save a lot of time and solve the whole mom and dad want you to get married problem, right?" Victoria knew all this, of course, but she was more curious about what had made her brother flip so completely. "I'm curious, Mason," she purred. "What made you so eager to help? That bastard was going to get $1 million. I only asked for a few thousand." Victoria immediately understood. "Fine," she said. "Send me the address. If it works, I'll give you another 5 grand. Meanwhile, I was still debating whether to call the billionaire. The thought of angering her was terrifying. She probably had people who could make me disappear. As I sat there, clutching my phone in a state of anxiety, it suddenly rang. I nearly jumped out of my skin. When I saw the caller ID, my blood ran cold. It was her. I took a deep breath, composed myself, and put on my best groveling voice. I was about to speak, but she beat me to it. "The deal is off." With that, she hung up. When I tried to call back, it went straight to voicemail. If it hadn't been for her signature Ice Queen voice, I would have thought I'd imagined it. I put down the phone and let out a huge sigh of relief. The biggest problem was solved. From now on, I would just live my normal life. Getting rich overnight was just a fantasy. By the time Mason got back to the room, it was early evening. He was beaming. "Did you win a lottery or something?" I asked, laughing. He cleared his throat, trying to compose himself. No. Then, as if remembering something, he added, "But close." I was about to ask for details, but he cut me off. "Come on, aren't we going to karaoke?" I just shook my head with a wry smile and let it go. Standing in front of the karaoke lounge, I hesitated. The place was bathed in neon light, and 2 rows of bouncers in sharp suits stood guard at the entrance. "Are you sure I can afford this place?" I asked, looking back at Mason. He just laughed and pushed me forward. "Don't worry, I have a coupon. 80% off. Let's go, let's go." I let him shove me inside. As I gawked at the massive video screens and lavish decor, I didn't see the 2 bouncers at the end of the line give Mason a subtle nod from behind my back. Mason's heart soared. He'd spent the entire day helping his sister buy this place. Every single employee, from the bartenders to the security, was a Cole family servant or bodyguard. And the drinks, well, they've been tampered with. Inside, the place was overwhelming. A giant screen displayed stunning visuals, and the music was deafening. Even though it was still early, the dance floor and bar were packed. "A single drink in here must cost a fortune," I said nervously. "Maybe we should go somewhere else?" "It's not expensive. After the discount, this whole cart is only like $50. I turned to see him pushing a full-size service cart behind me, loaded with all kinds of liquor bottles. "Where did all this come from?" I asked, bewildered. I'd only looked away for a second. Mason, realizing the flaw in his story, just laughed it off. "The bar was empty, so I just ordered everything. Our private room is this way. Come on, don't just stand there." I didn't question it. I followed him down a long corridor to the very last room. The Inferno Suite? What kind of name is that for a room? I read the carved wooden sign on the door. "It's the cheapest room they have," Mason explained. "The names aren't as classy as the expensive ones." That seemed plausible enough. But when I stepped inside, the level of luxury was still beyond anything I'd imagined. "You're sure this is the cheapest room?" I asked, looking at him suspiciously. He nodded, and I finally accepted it. I'd never been to a place like this. If this was the cheapest, what did the most expensive room look like? "Here, drink up," Mason said, handing me a bottle from the cart. He grabbed an identical one for himself and took a big swig, then looked at me expectantly. I took the bottle without a second thought and took a drink. But the taste was off. I swallowed, frowning. "This tastes weird," I said. Mason, seeing that I'd drunk it, was ecstatic. "Nah, it's fine. That's just how this brand tastes. You'll get used to it." I was about to put it down when he added casually, "You know, that bottle is $100 without the coupon." I ended up chugging the whole thing. After a few more bottles and a couple of off-key songs, my consciousness started to fade. The last thing I remembered was the room spinning. Mason saw me slump over and cautiously poked my cheek. No response. He let out a sigh of relief. He couldn't have kept drinking much longer. Even though he was drinking water, his bladder was at its limit. Thank God he'd marked the bottles beforehand. He'd hate to have mixed them up. It wasn't a knockout drug, but it was a potent aphrodisiac. He waited a few minutes, then pulled out his phone and sent a text to Victoria. She arrived shortly after. Seeing my face flushed red like a cooked lobster, she looked at Mason quizzically. He understood her unspoken question. "I didn't drug him," he explained. "Just spiked his drink with something extra." Victoria nodded and motioned for her men to carry me out. Mason, seeing that his sister was about to leave without paying him, cleared his throat and started rubbing his thumb and index finger together. Victoria knew exactly what he meant. She transferred the money with a tap on her phone, gave a little wave, and had her men escort me away. Watching his bank balance jump from 3 digits to 6, Mason looked at my unconscious form being carried away and said, "I'll be sure to thank you." Brother-in-law. Guilt? Not a chance. Only when the money was in his account did he realize how sweet it was to sell his best friend to a billionaire, especially when that billionaire was his own sister. Keep it in the family, right? The next morning, I rubbed my eyes. The room was completely unfamiliar, nothing like my dorm. A jolt of panic shot through me, and my brain instantly went into overdrive. Kidnapped, robbed, assaulted. The words screamed in my head. I stiffly turned my head to the other side of the bed. Sure enough, there was a lump under the covers. There was someone else here. I took a deep breath. "Stay calm, Leo. Stay calm." Slowly, I reached out and started to pull back the blanket. "Please be a woman. Please be a woman," I chanted in my head. A cascade of long, dark hair spilled onto the pillow. I let out a sigh of relief. At least my virtue was intact. I swallowed hard and continued my mantra. "Please be young. Please be young." A smooth, clear forehead appeared. I relaxed a little more, but when the entire face was revealed, I shot up in bed as if I'd been electrocuted. It was her, the billionaire. She seemed to still be asleep. I scrambled to grab my scattered clothes from the floor, planning my escape. The door was right there. I was about to take my first step toward freedom when a voice, cold enough to freeze hell over, came from behind me. "And where do you think you're going?" I cursed Mason 1,000 times in my head. That bastard. Why didn't he just take me back to the dorm? Right now, Mason was at home, sleeping soundly, cuddling several stacks of cash, completely unaware of the waking nightmare his best friend was currently facing. "Morning, Ms. Cole," I said, turning around with a stiff, pained smile. She rose from the bed without a shred of self-consciousness and started walking toward me. I quickly squeezed my eyes shut. Who knew what the punishment was for seeing something I wasn't supposed to see? "Open your eyes." I didn't dare. She repeated herself, her voice sharper this time. I said, "Open your eyes." When a woman that powerful gives you an order, you obey. I opened my eyes. A face so beautiful it was breathtaking was inches from mine. I swallowed hard and took a step back. That's when I noticed she'd already gotten dressed. Her clothes hugged a figure that was damn near perfect. A wave of dread washed over me as my body began to betray me. I clutched my bundle of clothes to my stomach, trying to hide my embarrassing predicament. Victoria seemed to notice. A sly, knowing smile spread across her face. She reached out and traced a finger lightly down my cheek. She gave me a look that was pure temptation. "Get dressed," she said. "I'll wait for you outside." Then she was gone, leaving me standing there, my world completely upended. That one look had said nothing and everything all at once. What could I do? It's not like I could run. After I got dressed, I found her outside, sipping a coffee. She looked me up and down, a critical, appraising gaze that made me squirm. After what felt like an eternity, her inspection finally ended. "You have your ID?" I didn't know what she was planning, but I nodded meekly. "Come with me." She didn't wait for an answer, just started walking. I followed behind her in a daze. Before I knew it, we were standing in front of City Hall. Seeing the official seal on the grand entrance, I finally snapped out of my stupor. "What are we doing here?" "Getting married, of course," she said, looking at me like I was an idiot. My eyes went wide. Seeing my reaction, Victoria seemed to think I was refusing. Her expression turned to ice. "You're not going to take responsibility?" My face flushed red. I'd seen the telltale spot of red on the sheets that morning. I knew it had been her first time. "No, it's not that. It's just, this is so fast. It's not that I don't want to." Hearing this, her expression softened. "We can talk about everything else later. Today, we'll get in a license." Fearing I might still back out, she grabbed my hand and pulled me straight to the counter. And just like that, I got married. Staring at the bright red marriage certificate in my hand, I couldn't believe it was real. I had married the billionaire. I didn't even remember signing my name. After we were official, Victoria took me straight to her family's mansion. To my complete shock, her parents didn't seem to have any objection to our flash wedding. They were incredibly warm and welcoming, as if they'd been expecting me all along. That night, after meeting her parents, I received my commission. Only this time, I wasn't selling my best friend. I was selling myself. Well, when in Rome. This was just another way to achieve my dream of a rich and glorious life. The bikini part of the dream, however, was probably off the table for good. I never thought I'd start out trying to sell my friend to a rich woman only to end up being her trophy husband. Looking at the woman sleeping soundly beside me, I thought for the first time that maybe this life wasn't so bad after all. I remember my doctor once telling me my stomach was weak and I could only handle soft food. I guess this is what he meant. The wedding was 10 days after we got the license. I was still trying to figure out how to invite my best friend when I saw him there at the ceremony. After it was over, I walked over to him, excited to talk, when I noticed the corsage pinned to his chest. He saw me looking and tried to pull it off, but it was too late. I'd already seen the 2 words printed on it in elegant script, "Brother of the bride." In that one heart-stopping moment, everything clicked into place. I kept muttering their names over and over. Mason Cole. Victoria Cole. Then I lunged, tackling him to the ground. "You son of a bitch. You were the Cole heir this whole time, and you pretended to be broke for years. You knew she was your sister, and you never said a word." Another realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I grabbed her by the collar. That night at the karaoke bar, you and your sister set me up, didn't you? Seeing that I'd figured it all out, Mason started yelling for his sister. Victoria, help me. She just glanced over, gave a little shrug, and walked away. His last hope was gone. He confessed everything. What? You sold me out for a few $1,000s. I yelled, my eyes wide with disbelief. Mason had the decency to look ashamed. Our family has this weird philosophy, he mumbled. Raise the son poor, spoil the daughter. I've never really had much money of my own. That's why I was always borrowing from you. As he spoke, he actually started to cry. I didn't care. The money, I roared. Where is it? In my bank account. Transfer it to me. What? What do you mean, what? I smacked him on the forehead. Under the threat of further violence, he reluctantly transferred his ill-gotten gains to my account. I watched over his shoulder to make sure he did it. This is outrageous. A brother-in-law robbing his own brother-in-law, he wailed. I just walked away, ignoring his cries. The victors don't care about the whining of the defeated. But his punishment didn't end there. When Victoria and I had our first kid, Mason became our built-in nanny. He had to help raise the baby, and I made it a point to regularly borrow money from him. My best friend truly shot himself in the foot. He ended up working for me for life. And me? I got my sun, my sand, and the bikinis in my head. Leo, where are you looking? Honey, it's not my fault. This is a beach. There are women here. You're getting a flick on the forehead for that.